With that, I'm going to start off watching for a few questions here. Danielle, the first question I have for you, and this was a few people had commented, and it's kind of built as you gave your talk, is the question on prayer. So you have mentioned it a few times to pray about these things, and that we should bring these things to our prayer. But I want to get really specific or practical. That million-dollar question: how to fit it in, or where to schedule, or what does that even look like? So I wonder if you could talk to us about what that kind of prayer that you're suggesting would be.
Sure.
And consideration to, like, with little kids or different chapters in life, or whatever you want to share on fitting prayer in.
Yeah. I mean, first I'll say, I get it. I understand. I understand the challenge. But I want to challenge you back and say that you do have 5 minutes. Okay. Everybody has 5 minutes. And if that's all you have, I want to invite you to start there. If you don't know where to begin, start with 5 minutes. I understand the busyness. I understand the interruption of life when you're caring for little people, especially, and the general business of every day. But I think too often we fall into the habit of, like, this is my life. These are all my things, right? We're busy and distracted with many things. And then we look at our lives like, where can I squeeze in prayer time in there, right? And that's when we're thinking about it as like a box I need to check off. When really what God is inviting us to, in especially inside of the story that we just shared about Jesus and talking to Martha and Mary, is that what our relationship with Him comes first. And then all the other stuff fits in around that. And so, I mean, of course, that's going to look different for different people, but I would encourage you to just look at your day. Where can you start with the 5 minutes? If you're not currently committed to daily prayer time on your own, start with looking for 5 minutes. Could you do it by getting up 5 minutes earlier? Could you do it in the evening? Could you do it on your lunch break? Could you do it during the baby's nap time? Whatever it is. I mean, if people tell me all the time, like, I don't have time, and I get it. I know it's very possible to feel that way, but I encourage you to look at your daily life and what do you think your priorities should be? And then what are your priorities? Like, how are you spending your time? Are you, spending time each day scrolling through social media? There's nothing wrong with social media, on the outside, but if it's replacing relationship with God, then if you're filling in all the moments of your day with, those kinds of little distractions, maybe it's Netflix, maybe it's texting with friends, maybe whatever it is, I encourage you to think about what it is that's pulling you away. What are your many things that you're busy and distracted with? And look for the 5 minutes. And then once you make that daily commitment to the 5 minutes, it's been my experience that it grows from there. You find yourself wanting more of it and making more space for it. And you come to realize, I did have the capacity to do that. And it's not always going to be perfect, and it's going to get interrupted 100 times. And you can know that going in, but that doesn't, discount the importance of making that commitment in the first place. And, and then I just encourage you to remember, it's not a chore. It's not something you're going to accomplish. You're not going to wow God with anything you go and do and say during your prayer time. It's not about that. You're not trying to impress Him. You're doing this for you. This is what we're made for. We're built for a connection with our Creator. And so we find those things that we say we want. We want peace. We want balance. We want joy. We want lasting fulfillment. We're seeking all of these things. We're working so hard. We're striving so hard for all of them. And yet God is inviting us, especially inside the gospel passage we just looked at, to remember that we find all of those things and we know who we are, truly, honestly, who we are as precious daughters of God inside of that relationship with Him. So we do need to be focused there. And yeah, you mentioned practically speaking. I'm a very practical person. Like, find your 5 minutes and then, be practical about it. Maybe you're going to find your 5 minutes early in the morning. So, set the timer on your phone. Put it away from you and spend those 5 minutes. If you don't even know where to begin, maybe you just want to spend those 5 minutes in quiet. We've been ending the sessions with a moment of quiet. I think we all need more quiet in our lives. We need more silence. Maybe you're going to spend those 5 minutes in silence and just place yourself in the presence of God. And then when your mind wanders and you start thinking about what to make for dinner or a conversation you had with your friend the other day, pull it back. And, don't judge yourself, just pull yourself back. And then when you get distracted again, pull it back and do that for the 5 minutes until it becomes a more cultivated habit in you. And then that way I find that even once you go about the busyness of your day, you're more able to bring that connection with God with you and be turning to him in all the big things and little things throughout your day.
Thank you. That's awesome. Partway through your answer, I thought, I was going to ask, like, what does it look like? What does the prayer time look like? But exactly as you say, like, those are the things, and our minds do wander, but that's okay too, right? I guess that's
exactly
part of it. A question came in here. This is not even something that's going to take too long. Your book sounds so great. Someone asked, what's the availability audio books? Do you have some that are audio? Do you know, or?
Yeah. So of all the books, the only one that there's an audio version is You Are Enough. And I'm grateful that Ascension did invest in making an audio version of that, because I know that's how I prefer books as well. You can take it in the car, you can go on a walk, or you can listen with the kids. But unfortunately, that's the only one that's available in audio version. Audiobooks are great. And like I said, I love them myself, but they're a hard one for publishers, especially smaller publishers, especially smaller Catholic presses, to profit from. So it's a big investment, and then they don't get much of a return on it, unfortunately. So I think it's difficult. So like with my new book that's coming out, I'm not sure there's going to be an audio version. I'm in conversation with them about that now, hoping that there can be, but understanding that there's a lot at play there. But yes, You Are Enough is available, and I am the one who read that one, so you'll hear my voice on there.
That's awesome. I was going to add that, it's your voice. So I feel like it's hanging out with Danielle and a book as you listen. So that is really awesome. Another question I had sent here. So a comment from a participant. I love listening to your girlfriend's podcast because of its honesty and vulnerability. And I really believe this helps other women learn and grow. Here's her question. It's fun. If you could change one thing since starting a family, do one thing differently because of the wisdom and insight you now have, what would that be?
Oh boy. Okay. No regrets. No. I don't know. Let's see if I could change one thing. I mean, you know what? I think that there's so much that I stressed about and worried about, especially when we were a younger family, the details of stuff. Like, and I understand doing it. Like, it's part of, I think, human nature. You care so much, and then you just stress all these little details, like how you're going to feed them and how you're going to educate them and all of these things. And I can realize now that it really more important than any of that stuff that we might do for our kids, or the choices we might make about their food or clothing or education or activities. Like, the most important thing is your relationship with your kids. And spending time together is the most valuable thing. And so I think if I could go back and tell myself to do something differently, it would be like, forget about all that stuff. Like, it's fine. You research your stuff and try to make the best choices. Of course, that's important. But, it's not in that at the end, that our kids aren't these little science projects that we're going to get a grade on at the end of the day. They're living, breathing individuals that have their own free will. And that's a beautiful gift to every one of us. And so really the success inside of family life, I think, is largely what comes from your relationship with each of your kids. And there's no replacement for just time spent together in cultivating that relationship. I think that's a really valuable investment. So, all of the other exterior things, they can come and they can go, and some of them are great and some of them not so great. But I think the level at which I stressed about all the details, I think I can see now it wasn't necessary. And truly just being focused on your relationship with your children is the most valuable and important thing.
It's awesome. Great advice. Another question that had been sent earlier to me, I hope you won't feel put on the spot. She said, seems like Danielle has it all. So, but I'll expand. So like kids, family life, okay, but a career as an author, podcast that's followed by many speaker, okay, all of those things. And so her question was, I'd love to hear sort of how does that happen? And I would like to add almost how to discern what to pursue pursue? Maybe you want to talk on family things, but maybe let's talk even career. We do have some women here who maybe aren't married or don't have children, but how to discern what to pursue.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's one I get a lot. I'm just going to encourage everybody who and I get it, because I'll look at some women I know in real life or people that I follow online and be like, how, what, that makes no sense. And everybody has their own unique calling. And so I first would want to caution you to don't compare yourself to other people. But then with regard to discerning, so for me personally, I shared that we got married and started our family right when I was done with school. And all I wanted to do was be a wife and mom. Work was not on my radar. It really wasn't something I wanted to focus on. And I just really wanted to be, home with my family, and we homeschooled, and that was an important, investment of my time. And yet circumstances change, and I was presented with opportunities. Like I said, I began doing a little bit of writing, mostly just for myself in the beginning, and it led to other opportunities. And then what I found was really important to do at every stage in that game, every step of the way, where first I was just doing some freelance things that led to other, part-time job opportunity, then full-time job opportunity, and then bigger jobs. Every step of the way, I was always just in conversation with my husband, of course, very importantly. And we would just very prayerfully decide together, does this make sense? And can we make this work? And, oftentimes the things that I would wind up saying yes to, it felt very much like this is an opportunity that has been presented to me. I wasn't necessarily even chasing it down. And so you can kind of discern God's will in that. What are your skills? What are your gifts? What are your opportunities? What are your circumstances? And, there are, thanks be to God, so many creative ways that families can get the bills paid these days, and so finding a way that makes sense for you and your family, and be open to the fact that it might change. You might commit to something, and a year from now, it makes absolutely no sense. There are things we can't predict. The ways and the needs of our family can shift and change. Our parents might need us in new ways, or some of your children might, or you might have more children. And so I think just being always open to, first of all, what God's will might be, and that God speaks to you his will through look around you. Who are the people who need you? And what are your circumstances? What are your opportunities? What are your particular skills or inclinations? That it's not quite as complicated as we make it seem sometimes. We just have to look around to realize, what is God calling you to right now? Well, it's this, it's what's right standing in your living room, right? And so recognizing that, but then being open to the fact that you may need to change your mind. And that's really an important part, I think, of family life and all the different big decisions we make inside of marriage and family life. It's important to be flexible and be open to changing your mind, for sure. Through the years, there have been times when, we've discerned, we've prayed, and yes, I'm going to do this thing. And then, oh my goodness, that was a really bad idea. That's not working for us. So, being open to that and recognizing, and I've realized as my family has shifted and changed, my kids need me in different ways. They don't need me in some of the other ways, and that presents new opportunities. And so I think just being very aware of those things, but it's always been very important to Dan and me that our family come first. And so every decision, whether it's about his work or my work, we always make in the context of that, what is best for us, what is best for our marriage and for our kids in the ways that they need us right now. So there's no one right size fits everybody, right? And so just recognize that and be very open to the unique ways that God might be calling you to live out your vocation to your marriage and family, especially.
That's awesome. Thank you. Sometimes it's so helpful just to hear those reflective comments, because you can look back on how things panned out, and you can even make that comment, oh, sometimes you just had to leave something behind that you originally thought was a good idea. Mm-hmm. It's sometimes reassuring to hear that for, say, someone who's in a position of thinking, I can't let something go or whatever,
yes.
The wisdom that it's okay. That might be part of the path.
Exactly. I think that's really important, because sometimes I think we can fall into the habit, if you're focused on work and you have work goals, to almost out of a sense of fear, I can't say no to this thing because then I'm not going to get another thing, right? But I think it's really important to recognize that, God is a God of abundance, and he wants to give and give and give to you. He wants to give you great abundance and joy in your life and in your work. And so trusting in him is so important. And so sometimes letting go of something, and it's always really helpful for me too, when there's an opportunity and like, oh, this is such a great thing, but there's like, when I talk with Dan about it and he's like, how on earth could we make that work right now? Like, that's not happening, And our husbands can be such a gift to us in that way, because they have that they have their own masculine genius, right? Their perspective, which is a balance to ours sometimes. But in those moments where I don't want to say no to something because it's so great, and yet I can see and understand that it's not a good idea right now. To know, like, my saying no to this is opening up that opportunity for somebody else. And that could fully be part of what God's plan is for that particular work, that ministry, whatever good thing it is that you feel like you need to say no to as a sacrifice. It is a sacrifice for the betterment of your family, that's opening that up to someone else, and that God's not going to be outdone. Like, there's another thing that he has in mind for you, something you may not have even ever imagined that he's going to be calling you to. And that's going to be down the road, perhaps.
That's awesome. Thank you. I've got another question here from our chat bar. She loved your mom's point about how everyone, this is the Mary Martha story.
Oh, yes.
How everyone at Mary Martha's house probably enjoyed that hot meal. So it is needed, right? The busyness. So what
true.
are some practical suggestions for how to bring Mary's attitude, which Jesus praised, into our busy Martha moments or minutes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think first and foremost, you have to have established that daily prayer, the habit of daily prayer. That is the most powerful way to do it. Another very practical way to do it is, pray your morning offering in the morning. If you're not familiar with it, Google morning offering. You'll see a little prayer. It's just an easy way to give your day over to God at the start of every day. I have it printed up and put on the bathroom mirror to remind everyone to say it in the morning when they're brushing their teeth. But then something that I've done that's really helpful is to kind of cultivate that habit of repeating that offering prayer, that morning offering prayer, in different moments of your day. You might anchor it in, say it again when you're driving the kids to school. You might say it again when you're making lunch, or you might say it again when you're, during your commute or whatever. But then also inside of moments that you find especially challenging, to remind yourself, like, oh, you're hurt in some way, you're disappointed or discouraged in some way, to pray that again, and be very deliberate in choosing to give that to God. And having that prayer memorized was really helpful to me, especially during busy years where I could interrupt myself in moments of my day. And it might be in the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's what you want to give him, is every single thing. When we talk about our relationship with God, I like to remember that he's this loving parent. He's this loving father. And I reflect on that in light of my own relationship with my kids. Like, anyone who's a mom knows there's this precious time when your kid's a toddler, right? And they're little and they're beginning to explore the world, but they're still coming back to you. You're their home base. You're their peace, their security, that you're meeting all of their needs. And so whether they're having a joyful moment and they'll turn to you in that moment, or they're hurt and they need you, they'll turn to you in that moment. Like, there's a very natural relationship there where the child is turning to you inside the good and the bad that happens to them in every moment. And that's how we're meant to be, turning to God inside of the good moments, inside of the bad moments, and inside of the everyday struggles and trials and different kinds of challenges that we might face. He really wants that very natural relationship with every one of us. And I find that the more you cultivate that, the easier it becomes. And if you feel like, I just get distracted and I'm never going to think about him again until bedtime, set an alarm on your phone or on your watch and just interrupt yourself, and, set it for 4 times during your day. And each time just pause and deliberately give your day to God. Give whatever work you're doing, give it over to him. I think the more you do it, the more it becomes a habit.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. Great tips. I love the idea of the morning offering on the mirror.
Yes.
No one can forget, right?
Unless you skip evangelization with your kids and husband too.
Unless you skip brushing your teeth, but then we have another. You'll catch them. Another question I have is all about friendship. So you, of course, your podcast is entitled Girlfriends, and you mention it just really briefly about Our Lady or Mary quickly going to visit Elizabeth. So I'm just wondering if you can just expand even more on just the importance of friendship, and maybe for women in particular. Mm-hmm. And then what about the context that we're in now, pandemic, like a year and a bit in, and even where we are, more restrictions, like that kind of thing. How can we how do we need friendship, and how can we build up friendship?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the visitation again. That is my favorite mystery of the Rosary, and we're going to pray the joyful mysteries here today. So, I think that Our Lady sets an example for us of connecting with Elizabeth, and it's such a beautiful example for us as women because Mary, she's just received this message from the angel that she's going to be the mother of God, and so if it were me, I would probably need some time to process that and get my brain wrapped around that. But we read that Mary didn't do that. She went because she also heard from the angel that her cousin Elizabeth was pregnant. And she immediately saw that she had that need and went to her. And I love to reflect on that beautiful image of them embracing one another in that moment where they came together inside of their shared experience of motherhood. Was there the real connection there? That was what was the foundation of their connection. And that's meant to be the foundation of the connection of all women. And that doesn't mean every woman's going to biologically have children, but every one of us, like I shared in that second session, is called to mother. We have that unique capacity for feminine love, the feminine ways in which we relate to the people and love the people that God has placed in our lives. And that's that verb, mother. And we are meant to connect with one another through that shared experience and encourage and support each other in ways that only we uniquely can. Everybody knows this. There are some things that, as great as your husband is, he's not going to meet your needs in the same way that a good girlfriend is. He's not meant to be that. So there are ways that we uniquely need each other. And yeah, we have to be deliberate about seeking that out sometimes. And we have to be deliberate also about avoiding some of the pitfalls because, if you look at it, I think Satan has particularly targeted female friendships. And to me, that's a great compliment because what it means is we are so powerful and he knows that. And he knows the kind of strength and powerful force for the good that women can be when they band together and encourage and support each other toward their common goals and try to help one another to grow in holiness and love and encourage and support each other and affirm our gifts in one another. He knows that. And so I think that's why we're uniquely targeted sometimes inside of the ways that we get distracted by competitiveness or jealousy or comparing ourselves with other people, that all of that, recognize what those pitfalls are, that they're a distraction from the powerful force for the good that we're meant to be. And, like you mentioned, now more than ever, we have to be more deliberate about it. We always have to be deliberate about it because, our families and our work will take up all of our time and our space, but we need to be making time for one another. We need to be making space for one another. Look for the people in your life that God might be calling on you to be a gift to right now. When we started, I was talking about that your presence here, even in this virtual way, is a gift to every other person who's present here. In what ways is God calling you to be that gift? In what ways does he want to give you the gift of the presence of other people in your life, other women especially? In what ways does he want you to grow in that connection with others and encourage each other along the way? I think if we reflect on Mary's example in the visitation and ask God, in what ways do you want me to play that out in my life? He will not fail to show you the women in your life that he wants you to love and serve that way, that he wants you to be loved and served by as well. It's a reciprocal thing. So recognize the value and the importance of that and just the powerful force for the good that we are meant to be when we connect with one another.
That's awesome, Danielle. It's so encouraging to know that we can be part of such a force. What a great way to look at that. We're almost nearing our time. Boy, it goes fast because I'd love to hear more and more from you. But there's one more question in the chat bar, and I think it'll be our final one before we start to say the rosary. It says, how do you set up boundaries? This might be a pretty big, boundaries to focus on family, marriage is the question. And we just mentioned now friendship, and we want to be deliberate about that. But I guess, boundaries on how to keep that balance. What are some
We all need help with that. And I think women are especially bad at doing this because, and I know I struggle with it all the time. I want to please everybody. I want to do all the things. I want to please everybody. I want to meet all the expectations. And I think that's really built into all of us. And what a gift that is to the people in our lives. But recognizing the importance of saying no to some things. Like, during this time of COVID, many of us have been in lockdowns and things haven't, the activities, our usual things, all the things that we're usually busy and distracted with, many of them stopped, at least for a period of time. Many of them you were sharing with me, Sarah, things are locked down again. So I think it's a unique opportunity for us to reflect on, well, when things go back to normal, if ever they do, right? That, like, what are the things that are actually important to me and to my family for us to continue doing? What things have we put aside that maybe we don't need to pick back up again? What things are we doing that aren't really serving our needs as a family? What things are we doing just because everybody else is doing them, or because we want something, after school activities or something? What space in your life would your family maybe benefit from having open space? And like I was sharing, that time spent together, unscheduled time that you spend together, downtime that you spend together as a family. In what ways do you need to say no to some things? And, I had a friend recently remind me that no is a complete sentence. So when you're saying no to somebody for something, so often we feel like I can't say no because then I have to explain, right? I have to say, because of this, because of that, I have to justify the reason I say no. But, I learned this very powerfully in a good friendship that I have, where I was asking something from somebody and she did just say no in a complete sentence, not rude, not in a mean way, but just no. And I realized, oh, that's it. Like, you can just say no. Or, if you're not comfortable just saying no to something, if someone's asking something of you, you can say, like, that's not going to work for me right now. And that's it. You do not have to explain why it's not going to work for you. You do not have to explain that you just want your Tuesday afternoons completely free. It's fine, that you're allowed to do that. And the other tip I might share is, talk to your husband about it. It's really good to get in a habit of, before you commit to something, whether it's an activity you're going to sign up for your kids, or a new work project, or whatever, to ask your husband what he thinks of that situation, and just get in the habit of saying, let me check with my family and see, or let me check my schedule and see, and just buy yourself that time and then check in with him, because there are times where you just need that outside perspective. And like I shared, our men are such a gift to us, because they can give us that. So many times I feel like my husband's rude because he'll just say something, and in a way that I never would. I would like couch it in all of these emotional terms and explain it all away, where it's just like, no, you just need to communicate this message. Like, that's actually not going to work for me right now, or I can't commit to that right now. Like, I don't know. This is like being a grown-up, right? We need to learn these very basic things sometimes. And if you decide together with your husband or with your family what your priorities are, then it becomes very easy, because you're saying no to that thing. You're saying no to that commitment. But what you're actually doing is saying yes to the beautiful gift that is your marriage, that is your vocation, that is your motherhood in your family life.
That's awesome. Thanks. Thank you, Danielle. So many great tips, so many practical ideas, but we are going to have to complete the Q&A part right here. And we'll start to say the rosary in just a moment. I just want to say, we'll do a final wrap up right at the end, but we've just been really just so blessed, Danielle, to have you here with us, and that you could be the reason that so many of us have gathered together, and just to reflect on all these things. I feel very encouraged, really enriched, and just, I know there's more things I can go back and reflect on. And I'm just really thrilled that I know many women can have heard those wonderful things and kind of know next steps or things to pray about, think about. So that is just really so awesome.